FHA loan with a 540 credit score and put 10% down, or you can do a 580 credit score, right? But if something happens, you can't really go to Home Depot and get a credit card with that 540 or with that 580. So with a renovation loan, as long as you have a client that has access to some funds, has the mindset, has the time, this loan can really be a good loan for somebody, but it's definitely not for everybody. So as a loan officer, I'm here to help you identify who, what, and when, so that way you can utilize your time with clients that will work out for a renovation loan, instead of wasting time with those clients that are gonna not be ready or get to the end and not have the funds. And that's why we're bringing the team today to help you kind of through that. So renovation loan overview, we offer a lot of renovation loans. So most of you guys have only heard of the FHA 203K. And when I say FHA 203K, I tell my agents to say all day, because we are closing them all day. It's not a one-off, like we are closing these loans on a regular monthly basis, right? But we also have other products that people don't know about, such as the home style renovation and the home choice renovation. Those are conventional loan products that are here for you to help your clients get in the loan, in the renovation loan. What does that mean for you, FHA versus conventional? Well, for my realtors, the magic answer is higher loan limits. On an FHA 203K for a 4-unit, I can go to 1.1 million, right? 1.0 million, or like a little under 1.1 million. For a conventional, I can go to 1.4 million. So you have much more buying power, whereas your 1-unit property is 500 and maybe 48,000 on FHA, but conventional is 792,000. So the difference between the products is you still get to do the renovation, but you have higher loan limits and you have the opportunity to take advantage of different programs.
Yeah.
See, that's a good question. So that's purchase price, that's loan amount. So your purchase price plus your renovation and minus your down payment is the finance loan amount into the transaction. So that's a good question. So we're talking about loan amount. So if you find a building for 400,000 and it needs $800,000 worth of work, you possibly can get into a renovation loan and obtain that financing. And can anybody guess like what kind of value that we're going to be giving the client? Like if your house is worth 500,000 today, and then you're doing $300,000 in renovation, what do you think the value is going to be that we're going to appraise it as for that property? Are we going to go with the 500, or are we going to give you more value?
More value.
Got you.
With the two loans, yeah.
And in that more value, we're giving you tomorrow's value today. So we're going to look at that ugly property and we're going to look at all the things that you're going to do to it. And we're going to tell that appraiser that we're going to do these things. And they're going to look at comps within 1 year and with 1 mile that have appraised for this particular type of property. So you're getting tomorrow's value today, which is a huge opportunity. And that's why renovation loans are very valuable. It's funny because I'm actually under contract on a property on 47. And I've been trying to go under contract on this property for a long time. And I went to ChatGPT today and I said, can you look at the picture and can you put these repairs in it and show me what it's going to look like after? And it's crazy because I wish I had it on my slide, but ChatGPT literally pulled up the picture. They made it look newer and all of that good stuff. So it really gives you a good vision to see what a property can be. Of course, it's AI, but that is the real reality of a renovation loan. You had a question?
Yes. I always thought these type of loans, you gotta get out of like
Y'all heard that? He said he thought on a renovation loan, you got to have a 700 or 800 credit score. That is one of the #1 myths in financing, period, whether it's renovation or not. A conventional loan, you need a 620, right? You're likely to get approved with a lower down payment when you have higher scores. It's great to have the 700 credit scores, but we don't just look at credit. We look at your credit, your down payment, your debt to income ratio, and your reserves, which are mortgage payments. So if your mortgage payment is $3,000 and you have $18,000 in money in addition to your down payment, now you have 6 months reserves. So conventional is looking at the entire picture, but the minimum credit score is a 620. But I will tell you, if you're trying to do a 4-unit, 5% down conventional loan, you probably want to at least be at 680, but FHA is 580, right? So once again, the program for the person. In addition to the FHA and the conventional, We also have VA renovation. You know, people don't think we can do VA renovation. Do you guys know how much veterans have to put down on their properties?
0%, yeah.
0%. They also have to put 0% down when they add renovation to it. Now, VA is a little more strict for a guarantee rate. We can do 1 to 4 unit, but we're looking for repairs that are not going to exceed about 75,000 and are going to be complete over about a 3-month time frame and that don't have any structural repairs. And I know I just went ahead on my slides here, so I'm going to catch you guys up. And we want to make this a conversation. I don't want you guys to feel like you're in school. So we want to engage with you and we have conversations. So feel free to continue asking, you know, all of the questions that you guys have. But we are going to go a little bit into the specific types of financing that we have. So the FHA 203K, I want y'all, when y'all start hearing FHA, just hum all day in your ear, because you need to let your clients know that you can do FHA 203K loans pretty much all day for your clients. There are so many agents and there are so many loan officers that if you are talking to someone, they don't do it. So they're going to run and they're going to say, oh no, this is impossible or whatever the situation is, but it is possible. So as agents, you guys can utilize renovation loans to get more business. And I'm going to tell you guys a secret. And I've been using this and rolling with this for 15 years because if you ask anybody in the industry about me, they're going to say that's the 203K girl. 90% of people that go for a 203K loan do not get a 203K loan. They figure out that it's too much for them, it doesn't work for them, and they end up buying something that doesn't need a renovation. Talking about renovation, that is marketing because you're in a small percent of agents that are talking about renovation, which is a pretty big deal. You got me fixed. So what's the maximum for a 203K? What's the maximum loan amount? The maximum loan amount. So the question was, what is the maximum loan amount for a 203K? And the maximum loan amount for the 203K is to the loan limits, right? So if you're working with FHA, FHA has the limit for the 1 unit, the 2 unit, the 3 unit, the 4 unit, and so does conventional. So there are different loan limits for the program. So if there isn't a maximum amount of work you can spend, you can go all the way up to the appraised value. So if you purchase the house for 100,000 on a 203K loan and the property's worth 700,000, you can spend 600,000 in renovation because you can bridge the gap to what you pay for it and what it is worth.
So there's no limit.
It's just to the loan limit.
It's
But
just
the
to the loan
renovation
limit.
repairs don't have a limit
Okay.
on the 203K.
Okay.
The home style is a little different, right? If you're purchasing a property for 20,000 and needs 800,000 in renovation, on that home style renovation, 70% of that construction cost and purchase price, your renovation cannot exceed the 75% of the purchase price. So if you're purchasing a property for 100,000, right, you're going to only be able to do $75,000 in renovation because of the home style 75% rule. But that's why we have 203K and that's why we have VA. So when you're working with a loan officer, you want a loan officer that can take you through the different segments of the programs to make sure the property makes sense for the type of program that we're actually doing. And thank you guys for joining. Being now that we did this, I don't know how I'm going to click my slides. Let me see. If you guys have any questions, you guys can add them to the chat. This is our first time doing a Zoom and an in-person, so I apologize for any technology error. Yeah, flash. Don't be clicking. We probably need a clicker. Got it. And then I'll go on because I kind of know what's in the slide. So for FHA loan, the FHA can do 1 unit, 2 unit, 3 units, or 4 units. 3.5% down, right? I'm gonna repeat that for you. 1, 2, 3, or 4 units, 3.5% down. And we'll go over another myth when we just talked about conventional and 800 credit score. How much money do you think you have to put down on a conventional 4-unit property? Let's go 5% to the left. Yep, 5%. So now since January of 2025, before 2025, it was 15% down on a 2-unit and 25% down on a 3 to 4. But effective January 2025, we could do 5% down for 1, 2, 3, or 4 unit on conventional. That is a game upgrades. What that means is if you want to add solar panels, you know, you can do all of those energy efficient upgrades, and we can actually increase the LTV a little higher than normal limits. So if you have a client that just wants to take their home and they want to update to make it more energy efficient, you guys can do that as well. Can you refinance into a renovation, right? How many people you did a home with someone 8 years ago and they still live there, but they don't want to sell? We can do a refinance renovation. How many clients do you have with building violations, receivers from the city in trouble, about to lose their property for violations? We can help them with the renovation loan to refinance that property and utilize the equity, because they can't go to get a HELOC, which is a line of credit. They can't go to a bank, right? Because their property isn't livable, maybe. If that is the case, that is okay. We are okay with mold, mildew. If the property is not livable, we are looking at what the property is going to be doing tomorrow. After you make the repairs, that is how we're looking at that property today, right? So if you ride past a very ugly property with the gutters hanging off and it just looks like there is no time of the day this has to go to an investor or flipper, no, this can be your client's dream home by taking advantage of the programs that we have today. So yes, you can definitely do a refinance, and your client like can maybe do a bridge situation. Maybe your client's like, hey, I'm looking to sell this property in 3 years. Well, let's do a renovation refinance. You can live in it for a year in your new, nice, renovated place, gain some more equity while it's on the market, and then you can sell it in 3 years as the nice fixed up property instead of settling for less because it wasn't to the market standards, right? So you definitely can utilize the program for that. And I know Mimi asked earlier about flipping. So flipping isn't really a word that we kind of use in this program, but basically what we're looking for is for the client to make 6 payments. So if an investor, which we have one program where we can do an investor 1 unit property with a 720, I would say they need like a 720 in this particular situation because it's investor, it's not owner occupied. We can do a renovation loan for them for 1 unit only. It takes time to get permits to do the renovation and then to sell the property. So we don't have any prepayment penalty on these particular loans, but if they go into that property, they can sell it. We just want them to make 6 payments to keep our relationship going, but they don't have to. Our goal is to work with individuals that's going to stay in the loan for at least 6 payments, but the loan is set up for people to utilize to take advantage of future sales, especially when the renovation takes a long time. Yes, ma'am. The question for what was the down payment for the investor? So the down payment, we're supposed to say 15%. I've only one time seen a 15% price out, meaning the pricing made sense. So 15% to 25%. I've been seeing them more in that 25% range for the down payment. Why would a home style renovation benefit a flipper or an investor who wants to do a renovation? It's the interest rate. Right, so the interest rate and the term. So we're going to be giving them a 30-year term. And then in addition to that, it's going to be a fixed rate, and their interest rate is probably going to be about 8%. Well, my private money lender is probably going to give them a 5-year term at 10%, and then they're going to probably charge 2 points on the front of the loan. So we'll be a little bit cheaper, but they have to be someone that has tax returns, W-2s, pay stubs, right? If you have a client that just doesn't want to provide the documents, now you're going to be looking into those hard money or private money investors, which I do have and can refer you as well.
Natasha, question. And also, I think the hard money lenders oftentimes aren't as rich when it comes to the remittance and inspection.
Correct.
So you have to get remittance and inspection. This type of loan product versus hard money.
Hard money's going to be easier.
So fast.
I don't know, I just finished. Oh, God, I'm saying.
And for my people, my people listening on a Zoom, thank you guys for listening. What Vaughn was saying was that in a hard money situation, they don't have to go through all of the permits and things like that as they would have to go through if they were in a hard money loan versus if they were in a regular loan. So you are going to have more stipulations with us. Another disadvantage for flippers in this product, and I talk about the real guys, I tell you the real and the ugly, so you can utilize the programs to sell to your client, not so we can sell to you. What works in our box will be in our box, and we want to help you get to other boxes if it makes more sense for your clients. But in addition to that, if they do anything structural, they have to have a HUD consultant on that particular part of the project which can make the job take longer. And I'm gonna let Vaughn talk about that here shortly. But there are some advantages and disadvantages, and we could talk about that as a one-on-one basis, right? And then the next question is, what is a structural repair, right? Because that's a really big question in a renovation loan. If you are doing a FHA streamlined loan, right, meaning you're only going to spend $75,000 or less in repairs, there is nothing structural, you can do the streamlined renovation loan. If you're going to do anything structural, regardless if the renovation is $5,000, you're going to be in the full-blown 203K. What is the difference between the 203K streamlined and the standard? The biggest number one difference is how the contractor gets paid. On the streamline, they get half of the money up front, and they get the other half of the money once the job is complete. Congratulations. Contractors love that. It's absolutely amazing. And that's really what they want, right? You can only do that in that streamline situation with 203K, okay? If they are doing a full renovation, we will have to start the job with their own funds, and then they are compensated along the way. And I'm going to let Vaughn, do you want to chime in on that? Do you want to wait till your presentation?
Yeah, so it's good to make sure that your general contractors have some liquidity. They understand business, not just construction. Period. I'll talk more about that.
Yes. And because when I did my first renovation, I had to write a check for $40,000. Y'all, I couldn't sleep. I didn't know if that man was coming back. I didn't know him from Adam. I was very stressed out. It was my first rehab project. Still live in the house today. One of my best investments that I ever did. But I had to write him a check for $40,000, right? And on a 203K, you want the contractor to use their funds, because what happens is that now your project is taking longer because they don't have anything to lose because they already got their money. So now they're going to the next person to get their money. So you always want your clients to follow the rules. And if you really want to be a listing agent for 203K or renovation loans, find some contractors. I have events all the time, guys, to come out, hang with me. Get 5 contractors in your Rolodex that you can refer your clients. As a lender, I cannot refer contractors. Why? Because they think I'm making a commission and all of that good stuff. So that is the hardest part of a renovation loan. I tell everyone, like, the loan is easy. We're going to make it look hard so they can give us extra staff, pay us more money, right? That's all strategy. But the hardest part of a renovation loan is finding the contractor. Once you do that, I can close your loan with my eyes closed and don't even really have much more to do with the situation. But that contractor piece, getting them to send their documents, getting them to write the bid the way the lender needs to write it, getting them to show up, getting them to bid it in the amount of money that you can actually get the bid done. And I always tell my agents, if you're working with clients, call 7 contractors. 5 are going to call you back. 3 might show up, and you might end up getting 2 bids. If you want to work with a client and they got Uncle Pookie, or they got a friend or brother or cousin, and Vaughn could give you his percentage, but 75% of the time that does not work out. So guess what? If you do have an uncle or you do have someone that is going to want to be at this job for you, fine and dandy, but let them know that your lender said you're going to have a 1 o'clock with them, a 1:45 with contractor B, a 2 o'clock with C, D, and E, because these sellers, they don't want to accept 203Ks. Because clients do that one contractor, don't work out. Now they want to come back and spend a whole day, do it again and do it again and do it again. No, we want all of them to come in the same day at the same time. It is healthy for the contractors to know that they are bidding against each other. That is healthy, right? Because that's how you get better deals. When you got another client shopping against you and you got to give that buyer broker's agreement, right? You might have to either stand on business or you might have to sell a little harder on your services. But now you have competition. And what happens with competition is if you don't present yourself in the best light, you might lose. So it gives your client the opportunity to make sure that they're in a situation where they're going to have a contractor that can come through for them. And guess what the important part of my bidding process is? You might get 2 bids at 100,000. I'm going to say you're going to get 1 bid at 100,000, right? You're going to get 3 bids at 175. Guess what bid your client's going to want to take? 100, right? But if they have 3 other ones that say 150 and nobody else said 100, I'm going to just explain to you guys what happens in this situation. We have what's called a contingency reserve, right? It is money. It is a percentage of the contractor bid that we hold for the contractor, okay? So if the bid is 100,000, it's not for the contractor, it's for you. So if we hold 100, if the bid is 100,000, if the contingency is 10% because the utilities are on, we're going to hold 10,000. No utilities, we're gonna hold 15%, which is 15,000, right? So you're doing this project, you had all of these bids, you took the $100,000 bid. Your contractor comes back and says, hello, Ben, I'm sorry, but this is not anything, unforeseen. These things happen. Your bid is now 150,000. You have 15,000 in reserve. There's no going back to the underwriting. That $35,000 that is not in your escrow that you need to finish your job is now on you. That is why the bidding process is so important, because if you take the lowest bid and that person can't deliver, you have to get that job done. There is no going back to the underwriter. There's like, oh my God, he didn't get it right, so we need more money. That's not how it works. Your 30-year mortgage is stamped the day you close on a renovation loan. And that is all the money that will come out other than that additional contingency that is set up for you. So with that being said, I just think the key to success on renovations is an agent that has access to some contractors, to get to know some contractors. And what contractor doesn't want to know you if you have business to refer, right? So with that particular situation, and just always stand with your clients and make sure that if they're going to go with the low bid, just give me one more contractor. Give me one more contractor to give me a bid at 100,000. So now if I got to fire John, I still have Jack's bid, and he could come and save the day after we close, right? So keep that in mind when you're doing your bid. And we didn't even answer the question, what is structural? Structural is anything that you're doing that has to do with load-bearing walls. Like sometimes my clients want to remove a wall. We're actually in a great place because we can see the load-bearing walls, and I'm not a contractor, so Vaughn can test me and see if I'm right. But in this particular situation, if these walls were going, like if we had a drywall, like out in the alleyway, that would probably not be a load bearing. But these walls up here with the support joists, those are load bearing walls, right? So once you start removing things from the beams and things like that, that is considered a load bearing wall. Some structural work can be $800. But if you're doing any structural work, you will be required to get a full renovation loan. And in most cases, you'll have to bring in a HUD consultant, which we'll talk about shortly. Any questions? All righty. Well, we're going to flip through here so we can get to Vaughn.
It's like foundation.
Structural. Thank you. Right? You got a crushed in garage, it's caving in. Structural. If you're building a garage, it's structural because it's support beams. And believe it or not, too, when you're building a back porch and you connect to the back porch is structural, but then when you connect to the roof, that's structural as well. So anything because those beams are in the roof and things like that too, and definitely foundation. Not you said what?
Maybe an unlikely scenario, but in your example of the one single versus the 100, right? So if you are going with a higher estimate, right, and you have a contractor who, for whatever reason, can get it in for 125, right? Is the loan still set at 150?
So that is my favorite question. So guys, let me tell you my question. So the question, I'm on Zoom, so I'm going to tell them the question. Okay. So the question is, let's change the scenario. If the bid comes back at 100,000 and the contractor can do the bid for
comes back at 150, the contractor comes in lower.
Right. Okay. So if we bid the job and the contractor bids the job for 150,000 and the bid comes back lower, the question is what happens with the $25,000 difference? So the answer is that majority of the time, if a contractor bids a job and they find a way to save 25,000, and Vaughn, you can chime in on that. They're not going to tell you because that's their bonus, right? They're not going to tell you. So like if they went to the Home Depot and Home Depot had a sale today and they were able to save money, or if they met somebody and they were able to do their labor for $10,000 cheaper, that's going to be their bonus. But the only way you can really control costs like that is if you have a material budget on certain things. So like if you said, hey, like when I did my last rehab, my contractor gave me $50,000 for cabinets, bathtubs, light fixtures. It wasn't enough, but that was my budget. So anything over 50,000, I had to pay the difference. So in that particular situation, we were able to itemize it and compare and contrast. But a contractor, if they get a deal or save some money, or even if they increase their time, I don't know any contractor that just say, ma'am, I'm so sorry, that congratulations, I'm going to give you $25,000 back. But the only way that will work is if you can measure it. And
yeah, there's so much to talk about that question, because that's one reason why you want to engage a good contractor, not just a contractor. Because there is a distinct difference between the contractor you would use for flipping and the contractor you would use for this type of product. Your flipping contractor, in most cases, to make your flip profitable, doesn't understand business. So he or she will tell you, I'll do a bathroom for $5,000. They're a flipping contractor. But a professional contractor may say $20,000. They will give you a line item detail estimate, which will say, this toilet from Menards, this brand, $99.99. I can verify that. The flipping contractor might have a toilet in their garage that they install. That is the big difference. That's why you'll see one bid, 80,000 from Pookie, and the real bid, 200,000.
Yeah.
Pookie. So Natasha said 75% of the time it doesn't work, 99.9. But it's never seen it work.
So I guess what I'm missing is that, like, in the bidding process, I'm presuming that there's some template, right, that's being followed by anybody to provide a quote that is like material labor.
On repairs, and that's why you want to also make sure you engage the correct consultants, because when I do my bid work, I pull part numbers and SKU numbers from the big box. So that when they bid, they don't charge you $350 for a toilet. I've already verified it.
Y'all heard that? And I'm gonna tell you guys, I think I have a PhD in doing everything wrong on a renovation loan. So I am here as a walking canvas of, I have made so many mistakes and I'm still standing. Like, I'm about to do a whole nother renovation. So you're working with somebody that does this all day, every day, and you're working with somebody that's communicating. These are real life problems and situations, and you don't understand them until you get in them. And it's our fiduciary responsibility to make sure our clients are equipped with the equipment to get in the loan. And if they're not, just put them in a different situation that makes more sense for the client. But like he said, the contractors, it's a real serious thing. And I think we're going to come back and say, if we started at 150 and they ended up coming to 125, then they would just give me the lower bid for 125, and I would just update the paperwork. But if, like Vaughn said it, not Natasha, but 99.9% of the time, if they say 150 and they get it done for 100, you will never bridge the gap, and they will try to skirt. That's why you want to have a HUD consultant that's going to be there to watch. You don't want to get a used furnace. You want to get a new furnace. You want to get a new hot water tank. If you're supposed to have 100 gallons, you don't want a 50-gallon, right? So that's the whole purpose of having that consultant be there. And we're going to talk about that here shortly. Eligible type of properties we talked about, 1 to 4 units, condos. We can do manufactured homes in some situations. So pretty much a lot of opportunity there. And these products are available on both the FHA and the conventional. This is a 30-year mortgage, guys. It is a fixed rate mortgage, right? On the FHA 203K, we can do mixed use properties, meaning 51% of the property is residential, and maybe you have some storefronts in there, right? We can do that with the FHA 203K. And another thing we can do is we can deconvert. If you have an 8-unit, I can make it a 4-unit. If you have a 6-unit, I can make it a 4-unit. I have a property right now. When I was here, I spoke about it, and it's funny because it's still listed as a 5-unit, and I actually found out that the coach house isn't even rehab. So I don't know why this agent has this property listed as a 5-unit. It's on 39th. It is a beautiful property, and it's listed for $850. And I just think nobody knows about it because it's not listed as a 4-unit. You go look at properties, you can open your spread, look up to 8 units. There may be something that you can deconvert, but you will be amazed if you go to MLS right now in the Bronzeville and Woodlawn area, how many 5-unit listings you will find. And guess what happens on a 5-unit? If I remove the kitchen, it is no longer an illegal unit. I repeat that again. If I remove the kitchen, it is no longer an illegal unit. So if you have a 4-unit with a coach house, and in your renovation, the kitchen is removed from that coach house, you have a 4-unit. What does that mean for you? 5% down or 3.5% down versus 20 to 25% down. What that means is that your client is going to have the opportunity to get into a bigger place, have the opportunity to eventually maybe one day make that a unit for only 3.5%. So you can open up your search when you're thinking of renovation, because we can make some different things possible. Sometimes you got to make loans happen. Sometimes you got to make deals happen, right? And that's the way to make it happen.
Question. $75,000 streamline. even though we don't, need a hook, so. you still have, study.
I'm gonna defer that question to the man to the left. So, but if you can, the question, guys, was if we don't need a HUD consultant, do we recommend someone get a HUD consultant even if they don't have to have?
Our question is about the feasibility studies. So I have feasibility studies all day for projects of various levels. Feasibility study is the first step of any project regardless of the amount. Period. That's your answer. Yeah. Now, whether you do it, or I do it, or someone else do it, it must be done. It needs to be done the correct way. Okay. Now talk about that in my presentation.
Look, and I'm trying to drag that. So we talked about the 203K, right? We want to talk about some ineligible items on the 203K, right? You know, no man, you can't go build tree houses, right? You know, you can pretty much do everything that you want to do as long as it makes sense, right? You can go finish your basement, you can add an addition, you can go out, right? You can buy appliances. You can even go to Home Depot and not get the appliances that's on the floor and get the nice 48-inch Samsungs that you got to order. You can do everything within reason. Can you go to London and order tile for $200,000 just for your foyer? Absolutely not. But you can really make your house a really nice house with the renovation. You are not limited to a basic home. You can really make a beautiful home with the renovation loan. Okay. There are some different renovation repairs allowed versus the streamline and the full. The streamline, no structural repairs, right? You know, you can't install a pool on an FHA 203K, but you can make repairs to a pool, but you can't install one. Where on home style, you can, right? So there's going to be different things that you can do per the program. So once we talk to the client, but everything as it relates to drywall, paint, kitchen cabinets, basements, dormers, mold and mildew, city violations, all of those things you can include in a renovation loan, regardless of if it's FHA, VA, or the conventional product.
Natasha, can you talk about tearing and building it down and rebuilding it on the same foundation?
Yes. So Vaughn is asking me, can I talk about tearing a building down and building on an existing foundation? This is another example of how we play the products to work. On a home style renovation, I cannot do that. Okay. On a conventional, on an FHA loan, as long as the foundation is okay, and it's not, I can't think of the word, it's something to my lung. It's not, as long as the foundation isn't sacrificed, we can, there you go. I was word struck. So as long as the foundation is not compromised, you can build a brand new home on an FHA 203K. Now I will tell you guys, because I know y'all gonna call me tomorrow, the city of Chicago properties, they were compromised. They ripped them down, they put dirt over them. It's compromised, right? The probability of you being able to build on a foundation that is not that you're not tearing down is not as likely, right? But if you have a property, and I had a property like this for my client when I first started, and it's so amazing because it's probably got to be worth like almost 1.5 million, but it was like on Milwaukee and Augusta. We literally had to go to court for this guy. They had an X on the building. If you guys don't know what the red X is, that means it's probably going to get torn down eventually if somebody doesn't get it off fast. But he had an X on the building. They were going to tear it down. It was in demo court. We went to court. We asked for a 6-month extension. They gave us the extension. He tore the property down and built an entire new single family property. And it is absolutely amazing and beautiful. So with that being said, you can actually build, and that's not considered new construction because you're building on existing foundation, right? So great question, Vaughn, because that's definitely something you guys can do. But you want to get to the property before they tear it down if you want to use that 203K. And you cannot do that on the home style renovation loan, but you can do it on the FHA. So once again, programs and products are key because we utilize them based on the product that makes sense. And since we're talking about new construction, let's just quickly talk about ADUs. An ADU is an accessory dwelling unit, okay? That the Cook County now allows one ADU, but we're going to talk about programs. FHA 203K, I can do an ADU. Conventional, I have 2 renovation loans for conventional. I have Freddie and Fannie. Those are 2 engines that we run. They have different guidelines. And when I tell you guidelines are so serious right now, like I just learned a new guideline this morning, but the guidelines are so different in these programs, and your loan officer has to know how to decipher between all of the different programs. And I do have help because I don't memorize them all, but my assistant is like a engine, like he knows all of this stuff, like a robot. But on the Freddie, you can have an ADU, right? But you can't do 5% down on Freddie. Fannie, and that's if you're getting a 2, 3, or 4 unit. Fannie, which is my home style renovation, Freddie is my home choice. I cannot do ADU, but I can put 5% down. So not to give you the underwriting school, but letting you know we can do an ADU. So as long as the units don't exceed 4 units. So the property that I told you about, the 4 unit with the coach house, that wouldn't qualify. It would have to be a 3 unit property with a coach house. And now I would be able to utilize that and finance it effective 2024. Any questions on ADU? Can she convert a garage? So the good thing is when you bring your team, Vaughn is actually, he actually does, things with the city and things like that. I don't know if you can convert a garage.
You could make it little space, but
can you make it an ADU?
No.
Right. So you can't convert a garage. Right. So I know back in the day, some of the coach houses had the upstairs area, which was the ADU, and the garage was the garage. But you will see in Bronzeville some people who the whole coach house is livable space. And I see that a lot in Hyde Park. Actually, there's one on 43rd in Ellis, and he has it, but I don't know if that was legally done. But any space can be finished space. I have a client that put a pool in her garage and fake grass on the ground, and she hangs out by her jacuzzi and all of that. So you can do what it is that you can do. You can make any space a livable space, right? But legal is the difference. So you will always have to contact the city of Chicago and your architect.
Classified as livable space, but not.
Got it. And the question right now on the table is what is an ADU? An ADU is an accessory dwelling unit. And what that means in English is it's pretty much an extra unit that's not legal. So if somebody has a finished basement and it doesn't have a front and a back entrance, the ceiling height may not be tall enough, but they have people living down there, that is an illegal unit through this, that someone did to make additional income, but maybe did not approve the proper permits and get it zoned properly. So now the city is allowing an accessory dwelling unit. So you would have to go through the process of whatever requires for that to live. You got something? Oh, I thought I heard words coming out.
Right. Yes.
The question was, does the ADU process take a long time? And the answer was yes. So we talked about the home style renovation loan. As you guys can see, my loan limits are much higher than FHA, going all the way up to 1.4 million on that 4 unit property. But once again, we're utilizing the programs to work for your clients, but we are putting 5% down on a 1, 2, 3, or 4 unit. And just to get a little more technical, when you get into 2, 3, or 4 units with conventional, your client has to have a little more money. So conventional is going to require 6-month reserves. Reserves are mortgage payments, right? So on FHA, if it's a 2 unit, no reserves are required. If it's a 3 or 4 unit, 3 months. So if their mortgage is $3,000, they have to have at least $9,000 in a 401k, whole life insurance policy, some type of retirement, in addition to the down payment. For conventional, a 2, 3, or 4 unit is 6 months reserves. So sometimes that's a barrier for clients. But if you're doing a project on a $1.5 million rehab, I think it's healthy to have 6-month reserves anyway, because like I said, we're not here to sell you on a program. We're here to equip you with the program that you can utilize to bring value to your clients. And anyone that's trying to do an $800 rehab with no reserves is setting themselves up for a huge problem in the future, right? We talked about investment loans on the home style renovation, but you can also do second homes on the home style renovation. So if it's not an investment property, but it's going to be your second home, we do allow that on the home style renovation and the home choice renovation. So I'm going to go through these really quick because I know we were going to make this an hour, but I will send you guys these presentations. I know we did more of a conversation today. I know we're going to maybe come back with a more detailed bootcamp also version where you guys have your notebooks and you're taking notes and you're answering questions and engaging, but we wanted to kind of just get you inspired and let you kind of know about the properties that we have available. So as I click through these slides, we are trying to get to Mr. Vaughn here, but I'm gonna go back to my loan table. I want to print this, guys. Ben, if you can print this, it's page 36. And what I sent you, this is a snapshot. This is a cheat sheet for you guys, right? So on this particular sheet, you can see, you know, the FHA, what we allow for the FHA limited and the standard, the home style, the VA, and the FHA choice renovation. This particular slide is just your cheat sheet. I am here for all of it, but it breaks down the type of units we can do. And guess what, you know, this has changed now. With the VA, we can actually go to 4 units. So we'll definitely get that updated for you. Every time I see a slide, I see something that just recently changed, but we recently added that we allow 4 units now. But when the product first came out, we only did the 2 units. But everything we pretty much talked about today, you know, 1 to 4 units, how much money you have to put down, the loan to value, the minimum amount of renovation, right? And remember, I talked about the 75% of the as is value on the renovation. So this is going to be your Bible as to when the program makes more sense for your client, right? And if you have a client that has high credit scores, you know, don't run from FH, don't run from conventional. A lot of loan officers want to throw you into a FHA 203K or just an FHA loan in general.
That is weird. That is weird. So maybe it's gotta be something else, because I would think that if they cut it off, that we wouldn't still be on here.
Right, that's the same thing I was saying. Did anybody get an